I have more money than anybody else, right? So it's no, I hear one guy has $10 million in the bank, one guy has $4 million. You know how much they spend to get $10 million in the bank? I heard the other day. No, they'll spend like $8 million. Yeah, that's right. Who said $8 million? Somebody, you know what I'm talking about, right? No, they'll spend like 79 cents on the dollar. I say, what do you mean?
I'm not able to do what I used to do. I'd be riding down the street in the vehicle before and see a bunch of kids in the schoolyard waving. I'd stop and get out. Realistically, I can't do that anymore.
I will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable.
Of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear.
How Donald Trump started. He was he owned buildings, and he was investigated.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. And they come up with things like what she just said. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now.
Caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in
not
this election
not
to
at
try
all.
to keep
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process, and I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign.
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
My name is Joe Biden. I'm Joe Biden's husband. Thanks to all the members of Congress and Homeland Security Secretary. I'm not sure.
Celebs can't quit Donald Trump. Roll it.
You thought about the possibility he might use the power of the federal government against you personally?
Yeah, I have, but I'm comforted in the fact that he's coming after you first.
You could be president. Do you ever think about anything like that?
No.
Really, never?
No.
Why?
I wouldn't make a good president.
You don't think you'd be good?
I wouldn't really pass any of the things that you have to pass to, but I guess Trump did it.
Yeah, no.
This is going to be great for Florida.
Well, I'll tell you what, Sean, this guy makes de Blasio look like Ronald Reagan. And I remember when de Blasio was mayor, particularly during COVID, it sparked a absolute flow out of New York City and, yes, many into Florida, and eventually including even yourself. But, you know, we've absorbed a lot of people over the years. I think this guy's policies, soup to nuts, are probably the most radical left that I've ever seen of a major candidate in a big jurisdiction. And yes, it's the crazy economics, saying they're going to tax white neighborhoods more. But he also wants to abolish the NYPD. He doesn't want to send law enforcement to dangerous areas. He wants to send social workers. This is something above and beyond the destruction that New York City's already seen. But I'm telling you, I think I'm going to have to charge an entry tax or something because of this guy, because I don't know if we're going to be able to absorb everyone that's going to flee his poor rule if he gets in.
He swears that if companies or corporations move out of New York and they move down to the free state of Florida, that he's going to follow them. If they do any business in New York, he's going to claim that they're a New York company. Can Florida defend itself from that?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's not going to fly. And I can tell you, just anecdotally, you know, I've spoken privately with some business leaders that when he got the nomination, they are preparing to move more of their assets out of New York City if he eventually gets elected mayor. So that will happen. And I think he's not going to be able to be successful in pulling one of those stunts.
Okay, but Wall Street South is already real. Every major Wall Street firm, they have offices, especially in South Florida. And that means every private equity group, that means every investor group, that means every big bank. They're already in the free state of Florida. So for them, it's a matter of just pulling up stakes and completely moving to Florida. At that point, there will be no legal hold from New York City as far as I'm concerned. Your reaction, and if they do try to go after them, can Florida protect them?
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I mean, you know, New York during Giuliani and those years was really a golden age for the city. And so a lot of those firms were kind of resistant to really embrace Florida. Then I think as the de Blasio years and the COVID insanity and all that, that really kind of was the limit. And a lot of them decided, hey, we need a big foothold in Florida. So they're at a much lower threshold to make those types of decisions now, given what's already happened. But yeah, we will do whatever we can to defend people against a communist mayor out of state. Of course we'll do that. We're not going to let him come in and spew his leftism in the free state of Florida.
All right, tell us about Alligator Alcatraz.
Well, it's the most secure detainee, illegal alien detainee processing and deportation center in the country. We've been working with President Trump's administration on illegal immigration from the time he got sworn in. We proposed to do this, but they approved it and said, okay, guys, get going, do this at this airport in the middle of the Florida Everglades. And we did it in about a week. Got a state-of-the-art facility built, can hold thousands of detainees. President Trump said he's going to approve us using our National Guard judge advocates to serve as immigration judges. So literally, you'll have an illegal, you'll be able to have them have whatever due process right there at Alligator Alcatraz. And then guess what? 1,000 feet away, there's a massive runway where DHS can then fly them back to their home country. So I think we're also going to do another one in northeastern Florida at our National Guard training center in Camp Blanding. The thing is the president was very thankful. Secretary Noem was very thankful. And we're happy to do it. But all the red states, at a minimum, need to step up and do this. If all red states are doing what Florida's doing, even if it's at a smaller scale, because they may be smaller, you're going to see massive numbers for the deportations. And Biden let in how many millions of people? We need these types of solutions if we want to get the job done.
Oh, I can't believe you built that in like a week or 2 weeks. Unbelievable. I mean, it actually looks like a great, place. If you got to be in jail, might as well be in Florida. The weather's definitely better. Governor, thank you. Appreciate it.
This is the real one. This is a real deal. This is,
I'm going to give a fake belt to the next president.
We're more used to that. That's thank you, Tara.
You are the people's champion.
You're going to have to wear that on the golf course for safety reasons.
That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah. Have you ever been fired? Like in a regular job?
Well, I went to work for my father out of school, and he was a tough guy, very tough, but he liked the job I did. So I have never experienced being fired.
Mm-hmm.
Fired a lot of people on The Apprentice, but fired a lot of people. But no, I've never experienced it. I wouldn't like to experience it, actually. Putin is not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
So who ordered the pause last week?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
What does this say about the relationship between President Trump and the defense secretary?
Pete Hegseth is the most unqualified defense secretary in American history. He undermines the ability of the Department of Defense to keep the American people safe. And Donald Trump should fire him, or Pete Hegseth should tender his resignation. That's been clear and apparent for months. And it's shocking to me that this charade continues to go on. Ukraine is an ally. Russia is a sworn enemy of the United States of America. And when you limit Ukraine's ability to be successful in the war of aggression that Russia has launched against a sovereign country, you undermine America's national security interests, and that's highly problematic.
Okay, so the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News.
I've got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars. They have an operation going on right now called Summer Heat, which has our murder rate trending in the lowest direction in United States history. Their emphasis on violent crime and locking up violent criminals has led to the arrest of 14,000 violent criminals. That's a 62% increase from the same time period last year. So this Attorney General and the FBI Director are committed to putting bad people behind bars where they belong. They promised an exhaustive review. That's what they did.
The National Weather Service, the union, actually publicly stated they had an adequate staff on hand to forecast and predict the storm. You shared your thoughts earlier on how the way the left has really weaponized this to blame the deaths in Texas on Trump. Want to comment on that again?
Yeah, I just do think those comments are depraved and despicable, especially when so many Americans are mourning the loss of their children. The National Weather Service, as I said, did its job. Many experts, many meteorologists have said that. Many of you in the media, in all fairness, have said that as well. Unfortunately, not all. And many Democrat elected officials are trying to turn this into a political game, and it is not. This is a national tragedy, and the administration is treating it as such.
The DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable, and I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And the Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the President's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a memo in conclusion of that review.
There are a lot more important issues in front of the United States Congress and the American people than who tweets what to whom. So let me say it one more time. I thought in the president's original tweet, I thought it was a poor choice of words. I think I know what the president meant, and he clarified later and said, look, if you're not happy in America, leave. Just leave. And I agree with that. But his original articulation of that concept, in my opinion, fell short of the mark. Frankly, I don't know why the president felt the need to tweet on this subject at all. You know, when you argue with a fool, you just prove there are two. And I consider Congresswoman Omar, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman Tlaib, Congresswoman Presley, I think is her name. They call themselves the Squad. I consider them to be fools. They hate America. They think America was wicked in its origins, and it's even more wicked today. They ought to be thanking America instead of calling America evil and wicked and racist. But this is America, and they have the right to their opinion. But I don't like to see the president even dignify their point of view. I think that the Squad, as they call themselves, they are destroying the Democratic Party. When your opponent is screwing up, don't interrupt him. Let him go. I mean, just looking at this from a political standpoint, if I didn't know better, I would think the members of the Squad were GOP plants. They think that illegal immigration, socialism, higher taxes, abortion are all moral goods. They think America, Israel, free enterprise are moral bads. That's not what most Americans believe. And that's kind of where I am on the subject. The president has explained his position. He has said, look, here's what I meant. If you're not happy living in America, leave. It's a free country, and I agree with that assessment.
Well, they're very unhappy. I'm watching them. All they do is complain. So all I'm saying is if they want to leave, they can leave, John. They can leave. I mean, I look at Omar. I don't know. I never met her. I hear the way she talks about Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda has killed many Americans. She said, you can hold your chest out. You can, when I think of America, when I think of Al-Qaeda, I can hold my chest out. When she talked about the World Trade Center being knocked down, some people, you remember the famous some people. These are people that, in my opinion, hate our country. Now, you can say what you want, but get a list of all of the statements they've made. And all I'm saying that if they're not happy here, they can leave. They can leave, and you know what? I'm sure that there'll be many people that won't miss them. But they have to love our country. They're Congress people, and I never used any names. But these are people, quiet.
Your tweets are racist, sir.
Quiet. These are people that if they don't like it here, they can leave. And I don't know who's going to miss them, but I guess some people will. One of them is polling at 8%. One of them is polling at 8%. So when I hear people speaking about how wonderful Al-Qaeda is, when I hear people talking about some people with the World Trade Center, some people, no, not some people, much more than some people. When I hear the statements that they've made, and in one case you have somebody that comes from Somalia, which is a failed government, a failed state, who left Somalia, who ultimately came here, and now is a congresswoman who's never happy, says horrible things about Israel, hates Jews, hates Jews. It's very simple. And if the Democrats want to wrap their bows around this group of 4 people, one of them kept Amazon out of New York. They're socialists, definitely. As to whether or not they're communists, I would think they might be. But this isn't what our country is about. Nevertheless, they're free to leave if they want.
Are there concerns within the White House or from the president himself over the cuts that happened under Musk while he was advising DOGE, including the National Weather Service?
I think I've already addressed that, Kristen, and what I can tell you is that these offices were fully staffed. The San Angelo office was fully staffed with 12 forecast meteorologists. There were no vacancies. The San Antonio office was operating with 11 forecasters. And as Brian said, the union themselves said that there was adequate staffing. So I think those words speak for themselves and the numbers speak for themselves. This was a once-in-a-century flash flood, a tragic natural disaster, and the administration is doing all that we can on the ground to help these families during this time of need.
Kamala says some more nonsense. Roll it.
Hello to all my divine nine brothers and sisters. And my soror. Future where we can see what is possible, unburdened by what has been.
From what you've said publicly, I think on Iran in particular, you and I disagree. And
let me ask what you think of how Syria wound up, because Bashar al-Assad now lives in Moscow.
Yeah.
He was taken out by our allies, and he's been replaced by a radical Islamist who was affiliated with ISIS. So is that a win or no?
Unclear. Look, Syria's a mess, so I've consistently opposed.
But we had a secular leader in a religious and ethnically diverse country. Now we have a religious extremist, Islamic religious extremist, who's overseen the purge of Christians and Alawites. Is that better? That doesn't seem like a win.
One of the things you said is you said he was taken out by our allies. I don't think that's right. Israel didn't take Assad out. What happened, and I'll tell you.
What about Turkey?
Turkey didn't take him out. So it was interesting.
Wait, so you don't think that, and I don't, it is very confusing, and I don't know that anyone really knows all the details, but you don't think that Israel or Turkey, our NATO ally Turkey, played any role in toppling Assad?
I don't know. I don't know that they did. Look, my understanding of that, they clearly took out Nasrallah and Hezbollah. They've decimated Hezbollah, but Hezbollah was waging war on them. So decimating Hezbollah was very good for Israel and very good for America, too. I mean, Hezbollah hated us. I would put Assad in the category of an unintended consequence, and whether it's good or bad, I don't know. I think time will tell.
For the United States.
Yeah, for the United States. I think time will tell the new leadership there. You're right to be concerned. Let's talk regime change generally. I mentioned Syria. I also oppose the Iraq War. I think the Iraq War was a serious mistake. And we have a pattern, and going back to this binary of the interventionist and the isolationist. The interventionists advocate over and over again, there's a bad guy, there's a dictator who's doing bad things to his people, and they say, let's go topple him. And you have dictators in the Middle East who are killing radical Islamic terrorists. We come in and topple them. The radical Islamic terrorists take over, and they start killing Americans. In my view, how the heck does that help us? Saddam Hussein was a horrible human being. He murdered and tortured people. Unequivocally bad guy. But it got much worse after we toppled him. And you ended up having ISIS rise up. I mean, that was the cause of ISIS, was toppling Saddam Hussein.
Is there a successful regime change that the United States supported that you're aware of in the last 100 years?
Sure. Defeating the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union collapsing, winning the Cold War. That was the most consequential step for U.S. national security interests of our lifetimes.
Okay.
And
so you would classify that as a regime change that we affected?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I actually think how Reagan took on the Soviet Union is exactly how we should take on China. Now, starting from the point, look, Reagan was not an interventionist. In 8 years, the biggest country Reagan ever invaded was Grenada. He was very reluctant to use U.S. military force. And it's reflected, Trump has made those same decisions where he is willing to use military force, but he very much asks, okay, is this good or bad for America? Does this endanger U.S. servicemen and women or not? And when I say I support regime change, I actually think just simply laying out what the Ayatollah does. And so I spend a lot of time, I speak to Iranian dissident groups. I speak out against human rights abuses. I think shining a light on the depravity of leaders is a really powerful tool that America has.
Should we limit our activity to that?
It depends. Again,
because the U.S. government pays opposition groups, militarized opposition groups in Iran to overthrow the government. We've done it in a lot of different places, as you know. I'm not saying it's bad, but that's very different from what you're describing. You're saying we're making a moral case, as we did for 7 years with the Soviets. Our system works, yours doesn't.
Yep.
And I think we made a credible case for that. And we beat them over 70 years economically.
And that was a huge part of it.
Right. I think everyone would agree that was the main part of it. We didn't beat them in Vietnam. What is victory worth if our own country becomes what it is now? And maybe we're spending a little too much time focused abroad and not enough time focused on the people sleeping outside Union Station.
So look, I absolutely think we need to focus at home emphatically, and we need to focus on prosperity. We need to focus on reducing the debt, reducing spending, empowering people, low taxes, small businesses. American free enterprise. It's the most powerful force for fighting poverty the world has ever seen. I'm 1,000% there. I also recognize it is a dangerous world, and part of the responsibility of leaders, part of President Trump's responsibility, is to keep America safe.
But can I ask, you've been in the district a long time in D.C., so have I, and the city's way more dangerous, and Congress runs this city.
No, it's a complete crap hole.
So I'm saying, like, no Iranian's ever going to kill me, but I could get carjacked here. And I just don't understand how the Congress could run this city and focus on the dangers of Iran when the city is like garbage. It's garbage.
But Congress doesn't run the city. We could.
Congress does run the city. It's in the Constitution.
It's in the Constitution, but they've given home rule, so it's a Democrat mayor who runs it.
You control the Congress.
I'd vote for it, but it is a question of math.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, why? How can people ignore? It's like if my own kids are drug addicts, but I'm focused on my neighbor's kids. It's like I'm neglecting my own kids, and there's a sense in which the Congress is neglecting the country that elected them in favor of this relentless focus on other people's problems. That's the way it feels as an American.
There are lots of problems in America that we need to fix. Why is D.C. a pit? Because you have a mayor and a Democrat city council that won't let police officers arrest bad guys. And in every city you see across the country, whether it's New York, whether it's Chicago, whether it's L.A., whether it's San Francisco, if you have Democrats, we see the LA riots where they won't let people be arrested.
Then why not work in regime change here? Why not use the bully pulpit?
I do. What do you think I do every day? And
I never see a Republican senator stand up and say, I just walked to work this morning over people dying of drug ODs. We're going to shut this place down unless they fix it. They're mad about Putin. Like, what did Putin do to Washington? Nothing.
Look, in terms of regime change, let's talk this week. The riots in LA. I've made very clear that the cause of those riots are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. And when you elect communists who hate America, who stop law enforcement from arresting criminals, you get what you get on the street.
Amen. I agree.
We know how to fix these things. And D.C. is, I think D.C. voted, if I remember right, 92% Democrat. Democrat policies don't work, and they destroy every community that they are in charge of.
Then why don't Republicans assert their constitutional authority over the city? Don't they control the Congress?
Yes, I'd be all for it.
Who's against it?
Susan Collins is really vocally against it.
But can you feel the frustration of people, including your voters, every American, at the emphasis on foreign countries and the threat we supposedly face, a lot of which is fake, obviously, over the kind of slowly unfolding tragedy of what's happening to our country? The dollars spent, the aid packages to Ukraine to pay the retirement of civil servants in a country that we have nothing to do with, the endless support for Israel, very expensive, when people are literally buying groceries on credit in the United States. Can you feel like it's nothing against Ukraine or Israel or any other country?
All right, let's stop. You said the support for Israel, very expensive. How much support do we give to Israel?
Well, you tell me. You vote for it.
Yeah, it's about $3 billion a year is the military assistance.
Is that the only assistance?
Yeah, we just have military assistance. Israel does not have additional assistance. There's an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, and it's $3 billion a year.
So what is it costing to support the bombing campaign to protect Israel right now from Iran.
So I don't know right now
That they had her on tape, all of a sudden that story changed.
No,
She
that's
didn't
not true.
talk
She
about
says her story has remained exactly the same. She
Oh,
was
really?
knocked a little
Can
bit
I
off
read this to you? Do you
balance,
mind if I
but she
read this to
remains.
you? You're a professional announcer. Why don't you read it? Now, that's an exact quote from her prior to seeing the cameras, and now she says, oh, I better change my story, I guess.
This quote says, I was jolted backwards. Someone had grabbed me tightly by the arm and yanked me down.
Did
I was
you see
able
it?
to maintain
Did
my
she
balance
almost fall to the
nonetheless.
ground?
No, she did not go down the ground.
Look, we have to tell it like it is. It would be so easy for me to terminate this man, ruin his life, and say you're fired, okay? I fired many people. But look what she says, Michelle Fields. Someone had grabbed me tightly by the arm and yanked me down. She wasn't yanked down. She didn't even have any expression. If somebody in this audience gets whacked or gets hurt, including me, you get hit a little bit, you go, wow. And by the way, she was grabbing me. Am I supposed to press charges against her? Oh, my arm is hurting.
You've suggested you might.
I didn't suggest.
Well, yeah, you
I
did.
tweeted. No, I tweeted. I asked
a tweet
the
is a
question.
suggestion.
Should I press
Right.
charges?
Are you going to?
I don't know. Maybe I should, right?
Known President Trump for many years, and on 2 occasions I sued him. He was trying to build golf courses up in the New York City reservoir watershed, and I sued him successfully to stop that. At one point, my wife, she wanted to go to Palm Beach for the weekend to see my mom over Easter, and I said, I didn't want to buy tickets for all the kids, and she said, what if I find a free ride? And I said, okay. And she said, I found a free ride, and I said, who? And she said, Donald Trump, and I said, I'm suing him. And she said, he told me he knows you're suing him, but it's okay anyway. And we ended up flying down with him, and I had a great time. I still sued him.
We're not going to have a country. I said for a long time at rallies, you need borders and you need free and fair elections. Those two things. Otherwise, you don't have. We have strong borders now. In 90 days, Mr. President, we didn't have 1, 0, 0, and 3 months. Not one person came in illegally into our country. In fact, even I find that hard to believe, but it's run by a little bit of a liberal group that put out the numbers, so I guess it's, but 0, 0, and 0. You go back a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 millions of people poured into our country. It was terrible. Thank you very much.
What guarantees do you need from President Trump to be able to make a deal? Is it American troops, intelligence, equipment?
We don't pass this bill, you raise taxes $4.3 trillion on 300 plus million Americans, and you watch this economy go down like a fat guy on a seesaw. As you know, Mr. President, the United States Congress is responsible under our Constitution for passing a budget. And when we pass a budget and send it to the president, any president, the president can either veto it or sign it. What he can't do or she can't do is go through it and say, I like this, I want to keep it. I don't like that. I'm going to cut it. That's called a line item veto. President Clinton tried it, and the United States Supreme Court said can't do it. So the president, once we pass a budget, has to swallow it whole or has to spit it out. But one of the tools that the president does have, the executive branch has, every president has, is the power of rescission. What does rescission mean? It just means the president looks at the budget and he says, I know I can't change it on my own unilaterally, but I, the president, can ask Congress to change it. I know you just passed this budget, but I think you made a mistake here. I think you shouldn't have spent this money, or I think you spent too much money and we've got to cut back. So the president can send us what's called a rescission bill, and we've got to take it up. We don't have a choice. And it only takes a majority vote to pass the president's request. The president has sent to us a rescission package. It's $9.4 billion, as you know, Mr. President. But I want the American people to understand the type of spending porn that President Trump is asking to take out of Congress's budget. Again, this is spending the president is asking us to revoke. You be the judge, folks. It's your money. American people can decide whether we ought to spend their money on this or take it out. Congress appropriated $4 million for sedentary migrants in Colombia. The president wants us to take it out. And let me say, in many of these cases, we didn't appropriate the money for the specific things it was spent on. The bureaucrats did that. The bureaucrats decided to spend $3 million for circumcision, vasectomies, and condoms in Zambia. You decide whether that's a priority. $3 million for sexual reproductive health in Venezuela. $2.5 million for teaching young children how to make environmentally friendly reproductive health decisions. I didn't know there was any such thing as an environmentally unfriendly reproductive health decision. $167,000 the bureaucracy has spent or is proposing to spend on free education and health care to migrants in Ecuador and Venezuela. $67,000 to provide insect powder to children in Madagascar. Mr. President, have you ever had insect powder? Don't answer that. I don't think I'm even supposed to be asking you under the Senate rules, but I haven't had it. In the area of LGBTQIA and gender programs. And again, you be the judge whether this is something we ought to be spending your money on when we've got $36 trillion of debt. LGBTQIA stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, and asexual. The one I had to look up was intersex. Apparently, intersex is when someone identifies as both a man and a woman. The bureaucracy wants to spend $5.1 million to strengthen the, quote, resilience of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, and queer global movements. The President has asked us to take it out. $833,000 for services for, quote, transgender people, sex workers and their clients, and sexual networks in Nepal. $643,000 for LGBTQIA programs in the Western Balkans. $567,000 for LGBTQI programs in Uganda. $33,000 for being LGBTI in the Caribbean. In the area of the climate, Mr. President, the bureaucrats want to spend, and President Trump wants us to take it out, $6 million appropriated for net zero cities in Mexico. $2.1 million for climate resilience in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and East Africa. $614,700 for climate adaptation, including growing coral reefs in the Caribbean. $500,000 to Rwanda to buy electric buses. Your money. $8,000 to promote vegan food in Zambia. The bureaucracy wants to spend $1 million on voter ID programs in Haiti. If you know anything about Haiti, it's a mess. They're not about to have elections anytime soon. $889,000 for electoral reforms and voter education in Kenya. This is just a taste, Mr. President. This list is illustrative. It's not exhaustive. So when you see us debating whether we should reduce the federal budget by $9.3 billion, which the House has already decided to do, and now it's our turn. And I say, which I have repeatedly said and will continue to say, is that all the President is asking us to do is cut the spending porn from the budget. You can make up your own mind. It's your money.
You've been involved to the peacekeeping in Ukraine since your first day in the administration. What would you say to the Ukrainian people right now who are suffering under the Russian attacks and hoping that the American people will stand with them?
Well, I know Ukrainian people. I've known many over the years. They're great people. They're smart. They're energetic. They love their country. I mean, they love their country, and we want to get this war ended. That's all I can do. I love the Ukrainian people, but I love all people. I love the Russian people. I love them all. I want to get the war stopped. Very important.
Was there any aspect of your discussion with Vladimir Putin that left you disappointed?
Look, we just spoke to, I was just telling the President, I just spoke to President Putin indirectly, and we're going to have a phone call right after these meetings today.
Thanks for being here tonight. You heard the majority leader there saying he has not seen intelligence to confirm that Iran's nuclear program was obliterated. Have you seen any of that?
Well, actually, that isn't exactly what he said. He said you need to ask the question to Tom Cotton, who sits on Intel. I'll tell you the reports that we've received is that this was a complete success. I mean, you think about this, Caitlin, and I don't understand why this is such a hard thing for CNN or other people to celebrate the victory that the United States just achieved. We had 30 Tomahawk missiles. We had 14 30,000-pound bombs delivered on target and on time. We had no detection, no boots on the ground, complete mission success with Midnight Hammer. And this is a victory that we should celebrate for the simple fact, Caitlin, that the world is safer because Iran cannot develop their nuclear weapon. And keep in mind, this is a country that is the #1 sponsor of terror around the world. So this should be something that we're celebrating, not something we're trying to bring some division between us on.
And no one is trying to bring any division, and it has nothing to do with celebrating it or not celebrating it, sir. It's a question of what the intelligence shows. So my question is, have you seen intelligence that shows that the nuclear program has been obliterated?
Well, we haven't had the report on this, but President Trump and those that are in that world have said, quite frankly, that this is a complete mission success. I know the initial reports that we have been told, but not in a complete briefing, that has been that it has obliterated their nuclear program. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't start their program again, because you can't eliminate knowledge. They have knowledge, but we know they won't be using these facilities anymore. We know that for a fact. Now, as far as the in-depth report, we expect to have that in-depth report come Thursday. The reason why they had to postpone it is, like you said, a lot of those that will be briefing us are with you in Netherlands today.
But in the terms of this report that we are getting from the DIA itself, what it has put together, it says the core components of the nuclear program were not destroyed, and that neither was the enriched uranium.
Caitlin,
that's more than just the knowledge.
Yeah, but Caitlin, this is a report from DIA. Now, for your listeners, let's break down what DIA is and what DNI is, which is what Tulsi Gabbard, because I think that's important. Tulsi Gabbard is the Director of National Intelligence. DIA is the Director, or is the Defense Intelligence Agency. They don't have eyes in the ground, they have eyes in the sky. This is a report that was incomplete, that wasn't supposed to be released, and we don't even know where they were finding their findings, because the ICs, the intelligence community that actually have eyes on the ground, eyes on the target, which is where we're getting our initial reports from. Those were the people that were in country. DIA does not have people in country that was providing this assessment. We know that this was a complete success. Now, that success means that our delivery system and what our target was on time and was effectively did exactly what we wanted it to do.
Well, first off, let me say, no one is doubting that the B-2 bombers carried out their mission and struck exactly the targets that they were told to hit. No one is doubting that. The question is the claim being made by the president that it obliterated this. You just said the DIA does not do this, but the DIA is part of the Pentagon. The Pentagon is what carried out these strikes, sir, and the director of the DIA is a 3-star military officer who is the principal advisor to the Secretary of Defense, is he not?
That doesn't mean that they have eyes on it. Our eyes on it did not come from DIA. I was in the
intel. That means you just don't trust their report at all?
Absolutely, 100% do not trust this, because the report wasn't a collective of the ICs, which the ICs, by the way, would go through, which is why I wanted to say this, DNI, which is, it would go through the Director of National Intelligence. For the DIA to put out a report without the collective bargaining of all our ICs, as you said, there's 18 of them, and I can assure you, Caitlin, we don't have 18 agencies, intelligence agencies working on Iran. That would be disastrous. We have a few, actually we have less than a few. We have really only one plus our allies that are working in there, and that did not include any of their assessment. So how could you have a complete report given it from their assessment only, and their assessments are only coming from eyes in the sky, not eyes on the ground?
Well, and we have made clear it's a preliminary report, but this is the only intelligence report that so far has.
Well, then why would you run with it? Because you're assuming. But you're assuming this report is the report, and it is absolutely not even close report. Do you know how many intelligence agencies briefings I have set in?
Senator, and you said on armed services, and you just said you do not trust the Defense Intelligence Agency's report.
No, what I
said
is
going to bring up with the Pentagon?
No, what I said is I don't trust this report, because I have said in briefings now for 12 years. I was on the I was on the Intel committee in the House. Not one time did we have DIA ever come in and brief us. That was not where our briefings are coming from. In fact, go back and see all the intelligence briefings we've had that's been public and been in private that's been released. Have you ever seen DIA one time ever brief Congress? Ever. One time ever brief Congress? No, they have not.
Have you seen intelligence, though, that contradicts what the DIA is saying so far?
Well, I've seen reporting, not reporting from you, but I've seen reports come out. As far as a full briefing, we haven't, as you know, we've already said this, the briefing has been pushed to Thursday. But the initial reports we have 100% contradicts what DIA was saying here. And I'm not saying DIA isn't capable. DIA is capable. I'm saying this report is not an accurate report. I don't even know where this report came from. I don't know who authorized this report or where they gathered their intelligence, but there's no way. There's multiple people inside DIA, Caitlin. But how did this person that brought this report together, how did they get their information? Where did their information come from? Because it wasn't collective around the ICs, as I've said before, not to repeat myself, of gathering the information with individuals that was actually on ground, not the assumption. So I don't know where this report was generated from. I know it was reported out of as a DIA, but why?
There is a reason, obviously, that people want to know about the intelligence here, that the American people do, because, I mean, there have been moments in the United States history pretty recently where flawed intelligence has led the United States into war. So do you believe that the case should be made to the American people to back up the president's claim that he is making based on intelligence, not just what he is saying?
Well, Caitlin, that's a far-fetched compared to where we have been to where we are today. Different presidents, different reasons behind. President Trump's mission going into this was very clear.
And Trump criticized those presidents.
Well, I would say that in some cases, rightfully so, criticizing the presidents. But when you start looking at what our mission was, every president since Bill Clinton has made it very clear that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Every single president has said that. And President Trump actually delivered it and did something about it. When you start talking about the assumption of miscrediting what information, there's some that will be shared. There will be a success report come out to the American people, but we can't go into full detail because there's a lot of this stuff that is classified and should stay classified for obvious reasons. Like the way we were able to get the intel, the way we were able to get in without being noticed, why we delivered the 30 Tomahawk missiles before the B-2 showed up, how we knew what weapons to be used, how we knew how to calculate those weapons, what our entry points were, where we knew to precisely hit where it'd be most effective. All that information will not be shared, but the success of it has already been told, but the full reports of it that we can share will be shared with the American people. President Trump's the most transparent president we've had.
You're saying that intelligence will be shared, will be made public.
No. I said the stuff. No,
the nuclear
Caitlin.
Program was obliterated.
Caitlin, don't put words in my mouth. What I said is the stuff that can be shared will be shared.
I'm just clarifying.
I thought I was pretty clear. The stuff that can be shared will be shared.
Okay, Senator, let me ask you about what Republicans are working on Capitol Hill, as well as waiting on those intelligence briefings when it comes to the signature legislation that Republicans are working to get passed. I want to ask you about a comment that was reported on by Punchbowl News that Senator McConnell said to your colleagues earlier, talking about failure is not an option here in getting this passed. He was reportedly quoted as saying, I know a lot of us are hearing from people back home about Medicaid, but they'll get over it. Is that how you heard that comment? And do you think that is an effective message from your Republican colleagues?
That is absolutely not the way I heard that message. What I do remember 100%, Mitch McConnell only spoke for maybe 60 seconds and said failure's not an option. We've been in these positions before. We have to make tough decisions. We're elected to make tough decisions, but the American people chose this Republican Party to lead, and failure is not an option. That was pretty much summed it up. The other part about the Medicaid, I don't remember that at all. I was in the meeting, obviously, and I don't remember that being stated.
Senator Mark Wade Mullen, thank you for your time tonight.
I get that throbbing feeling every once in a while. Get that throbbing feeling, but you know what? That's okay. This is a dangerous business. What I do is a dangerous business. You know, I tell the story of the car companies and different people in different professions. You have race car drivers, as an example. 0.1% die. Bull riders, 0.1%. That's not a lot, but it's people die. When you're president, it's about 5%. If somebody would have told me that, maybe I wouldn't have run.
okay? Well, you're the only person on the stage that's ever been fined for hiring people to work on your projects illegally. You hired some workers from Poland.
I'm the only one on the stage that's hired people. You haven't hired anybody.
Well, in fact, some of the people he hired. Well, but hold on.
I've hired. And by the way, I've hired tens of thousands of people over my job. You've hired
1,000 people
You've
from
had
another
nothing
company,
but problems
from another
with your
country.
credit cards, etc.
Let me
So
say.
don't tell me about that.
Let me finish the statement. This is important.
You haven't hired one person
He
in
hired
your life.
workers from Poland, and he had to pay $1 million or so in a judgment.
That's wrong. That's wrong.
That's a fact.
Totally wrong.
Well, people can look it up. I'm sure people are Googling it right now. Look it up. Trump Polish workers. You'll see $1 million for hiring illegal workers on one of his projects. Yeah, he did.
Wrong. You know, it's interesting.
That happened.
I've hired tens of thousands of people over my lifetime. Tens of thousands.
Many from other countries instead of hiring Americans.
Be quiet. Let me talk. I've hired tens of thousands of people. He brings up something from 30 years ago. It worked out very well. Everybody was happy.
Paid $1 million.
And by the way, the laws were totally different. That was a whole different world.
Thank you.
But I've hired people. Nobody up here has hired.
If he builds the wall the way he built Trump Towers, he'll be using illegal immigrant labor to do it. The second.
So cute. Such a cute soundbite.
But no, it's not a soundbite. It's a fact.
Yeah,
Again, go online and Google it. Donald Trump, Polish workers. You'll see it. The second thing about the trade war, I don't understand, because your ties and the clothes you make is made in Mexico and in China. So you're going to be starting a trade war against your own ties and your own suits. All right.
You know what? Because
why don't you make them in America?
Their currencies.
No.
They devalue their currencies.
Well, then make them in America.
That makes it impossible. Well, you don't know anything about business. You lose on
make them in America.
You don't know anything about it because you're a lousy
Well, I don't know
businessman.
anything about bankrupting four companies.
No,
You bankrupted four companies.
You know what?
I don't know anything about.
You know what?
Starting a university. That was a fake university.
First of all,
a fake university.
That's called.
There are people that borrowed $36,000 to go to
Mr.
Trump University, and they're suing him now. $36,000 to go to a university.
By the way,
that's a fake school.
And by the way,
and you know what they got? They got to take a picture with a cardboard cutout of Donald Trump.
And by the way,
that's what they got for the $36,000.
I want to move on.
And they actually did a very good job. But I've won most of the lawsuit.
Senator, I want to bring in the lawsuit. I want to bring in my colleague Maria Celeste.
Excuse me, Wolf, let me ask you, am I allowed to respond to this?
You're allowed. You've been responding.
Okay, well, no, I haven't. I really haven't.
He's talked through the whole thing.
Here's the guy that buys a house for $179,000. He sells it to a lobbyist who's probably here for $380,000, and then legislation is passed. You tell me about this guy. This is what we're going to have.
Here's the guy that inherited $200 million. If he hadn't inherited $200 million, you know where Donald Trump would be right now? Selling watches in Manhattan.
Wrong. That is so wrong. We'll work on that. I took $1 million and I turned it into $10 billion. I borrowed $1 million.
Then release the tax return so we can see how much money he makes.
I borrowed $1 million. I turned it into $10 billion, more than $10 billion.
As soon as I step foot into the Oval Office.
I have to say, he lied this time. He lied. 100%. 100%.
You lied about the Polish workers.
Yeah.
You lied to the students of Trump University.
38 years ago.
Oh, he lied 38 years ago. All right, I guess there's a statute of limitation on lies. Here's what you didn't hear in that answer, and this is important, guys. This is an important thing. What is your plan? I understand the lines around the state, whatever that means. This is not a game where you draw maps
and you
around.
Don't know what it
What
means.
is your plan?
That's the problem.
What is your plan on health care? You don't have a plan.
The biggest problem he doesn't know.
I'll give you 1 minute.
The biggest problem he's got is he doesn't know. You know, I watched him melt down 2 weeks ago with Chris Christie. I got to tell you, the biggest problem he's got is he really doesn't know about the lines. The biggest thing we've got, and the reason we have no competition, is because we have lines around the state, and you have essentially
we already mentioned that as part of my plan. I know what that is. But what else is part of your plan? So your only thing is to get rid of the lines around the states. What else is part of your health care plan?
The lines around the states mean.
That's your only plan.
And it was almost done. No. You know what that does?
I'll
that
give
brings
him time
in.
to mind. He can tell us his plan.
Excuse me. That brings in competition. When you get rid of the lines, it brings in competition. So instead of having one insurance company taking care of New York or Texas, you'll have many. They'll compete, and it'll be a beautiful thing.
Right. And so that's the only part of the plan? Just the lines, the interstate competition?
No, the nice part about the plan, you'll have many different plans. You'll have competition. You'll have so many different plans.
But now he's repeating himself.
No, I'm not repeating. No. I don't repeat myself.
You don't repeat yourself.
Here's the guy who repeats himself.
You repeat yourself every day.
I watched him talking about repeating. I watched him repeat himself 5 times 4 weeks ago. And
I saw you repeat yourself 5 times 5 seconds ago.
I watched him melt down on the stage like I've never seen anybody. I thought he came out of the swimming pool.
I said, well,
let's talk
I see him
about
repeat
your
himself
plan.
every night. It says 5 things. Everyone's dumb.
Senator
He's going to
Rubio.
make America great
Senator
again. We're going to
Rubio.
win, win, win.
Senator
He's
Rubio,
winning in the
please.
polls.
It's all true.
And the lines around the state. Every night. Same thing.
Senator Rubio.
I tell the truth. I tell
Senator
the
Rubio,
truth.
you will have time to respond if you
All
would
right.
just let Mr. Trump respond to what
Yeah,
you
he's
just
gonna give us
posed
his
to
plan
him.
now, right?
If you could talk a little bit more about your plan. I know you talked about
No,
the
we're going to have
interstate.
many different plans
Can you
because there's
give us
going to be
specific?
competition.
Said it again.
There's going to be competition. There is going to be competition among all of the states and the insurance companies. They're going to have many, many different plans.
Is there anything else you would like to add to that? as part of
No,
your
there's
plan?
nothing to add. What's the add?
Marco is not a negotiator. I watched him melt down, and I'll tell you, it was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. He's not going down.
He thinks the
Excuse me, wait
Palestinian is a
minute, wait
real
minute.
estate deal.
And these people may even be tougher than Chris Christie, okay?
The Palestinians
They may
are not
even
a
be
real
tougher.
estate deal, Donald.
Okay, no. A deal,
They're not a real estate
deal is
deal.
a deal. Let me tell you,
A
I've
deal
learned
is
a
not
long
a deal
time
when you're
ago.
dealing with terrorists. Have you
You
ever
are not a
negotiated with terrorists?
negotiator. You are not a negotiator. And with your thinking, you will never bring peace. You will never bring peace.
Donald might be able to build
I wanna be
condos in the
able-
Palestinian areas,
Excuse me.
but he's not going to. This is
Excuse
not a
me,
real
I
estate
wanna
deal.
be able to bring
Senator.
peace. He will never be able to do it. I think I may be able to do it, although I will say this, probably the toughest deal of any kind is that particular.
You've been funding liberal Democratic politicians, and by the way,
I funded you.
The
I
reason
funded him.
You're welcome
You
to have
believe
the
it?
check
I
back.
funded this guy.
Because let's
I
be
gave him
clear.
a check.
Yeah,
I
you
gave
gave
him
me
a check.
$5,000.
You never funded me.
And
Last night, the United States brought the world's #1 terrorist leader to justice. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead. He was the founder and leader of ISIS, the most ruthless and violent terror organization anywhere in the world. The United States has been searching for Baghdadi for many years. Capturing or killing Baghdadi has been the top national security priority of my administration. U.S. Special Operations Forces executed a dangerous and daring nighttime raid in northwestern Syria and accomplished their mission in grand style. The U.S. personnel were incredible. I got to watch much of it. No personnel were lost in the operation, while a large number of Baghdadi's fighters and companions were killed with him. He died after running into a dead-end tunnel, whimpering and crying and screaming all the way. The compound had been cleared by this time, with people either surrendering or being shot and killed. 11 young children were moved out of the house and are uninjured. The only ones remaining were Baghdadi in the tunnel, and he had dragged 3 of his young children with him. They were led to certain death. He reached the end of the tunnel as our dogs chased him down. He ignited his vest, killing himself and the 3 children. His body was mutilated by the blast. The tunnel had caved in on it in addition. But test results gave certain, immediate, and totally positive identification. It was him. The thug who tried so hard to intimidate others spent his last moments in utter fear, in total panic and dread, terrified of the American forces bearing down on him. We were in the compound for approximately 2 hours, and after the mission was accomplished, we took highly sensitive material and information from the raid, much having to do with ISIS, origins, future plans, things that we very much want.
Baghdadi's demise demonstrates America's relentless pursuit of terrorist leaders and our commitment to the enduring and total defeat of ISIS and other terrorist organizations. Our reach is very long. As you know, last month we announced that we recently killed Hamza bin Laden, the very violent son of Osama bin Laden, who was saying very bad things about people, about our country, about the world. He was the heir apparent to Al-Qaeda, terrorists who oppress and murder innocent people should never sleep soundly. No.
18 pounds. I know, that's a lot. I can't lift it. I don't know who can. Any of our ex-Trump people, they're all Trump people. Kevin's saying he can lift it. I don't know about that, Kevin, but that's a lot. 218 pounds, and she got over that weight, and she was going to break it. They put a half an ounce here, half little tiny ring on top of these big barbells, dumbbells. Then they go, and she went like this, and she got to break it. Stood for 11 years. And her mother and father are screaming, "You got it! You got it, darling. I'm so proud of my girl." Well, she couldn't do it. And then this guy comes along. He's named Alice. And he looks at the weight. World record, world record. We could have put another couple of 100 pounds on. I think he would have lifted it. Judgment of God. Baghdadi has been on the run for many years, long before I took office. But at my direction, as Commander-in-Chief of the United States, we obliterated his caliphate 100% in March of this year. Today's events are another reminder that we will continue to pursue the remaining ISIS terrorists to their brutal end. That also goes for other terrorist organizations. They are likewise in our sights. Baghdadi and the losers who worked for him, and losers they are, they had no idea what they were getting into. In some cases, they were very frightened puppies. In other cases, they were hardcore killers. But they killed many, many people. Their murder of innocent Americans, James Foley, Stephen Sotloff, Peter Kasich, and Kayla Mueller, were especially heinous. The shocking publicized murder of Jordanian pilot, a wonderful young man, spoke to the king of Jordan. They all knew him. They all loved him. He was burned alive in a cage for all to see on the execution of Christians in Libya and Egypt, as well as the genocidal mass murder of Yazidis, rank ISIS among the most depraved organizations the history of our world. The forced religious conversions, the orange suits prior to so many beheadings, all of which were openly displayed for the world to see. This was all that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, this is what he wanted. This is what he was proud of. He was a sick and depraved man, and now he's gone. Baghdadi was vicious and violent, and he died in a vicious and violent way as a coward, running and crying. This raid was impeccable and could only have taken place with the acknowledgement and help of certain other nations and people.
I want to thank the nations of Russia, Turkey, Syria, and Iraq. And I also want to thank the Syrian Kurds for certain support they were able to give us. This was a very, very dangerous mission. Thank you as well to the great intelligence professionals who helped make this very successful journey possible. I want to thank the soldiers and sailors, airmen and Marines involved in last night's operation. You are the very best there is anywhere in the world. No matter where you go, there is nobody even close. I want to thank General Mark Milley and our Joint Chiefs of Staff. And I also want to thank our professionals who work in other agencies of the United States government and were critical to the mission's unbelievable success. Last night was a great night for the United States and for the world. A brutal killer, one who has caused so much hardship and death, has violently been eliminated. He will never again harm another innocent man, woman, or child. He died like a dog. He died like a coward. The world is now a much safer place. God bless America. Thank you.
What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. They were a little downbeat because they listened to that fake CNN reporting and the fake New York Times. They worked together to try and say that it wasn't perfect. They couldn't say they missed. All they could say is, maybe it wasn't perfect. And you ought to fire that reporter immediately. You should fire her. Real fake. You know, a lot of people don't like bringing things like that up. I do. I always like confronting, because otherwise the public doesn't know that you're a bunch of crooked people. But they know, they've learned, and the media has to straighten out their act. You know, the media is down to 17% approval. You got to do a little better than that. It's important for the country that you do better. I think they ought to make a lot of changes. I think changes are going to be made to the media, but it's hard to have a really successful country if you have a corrupt media, and we really have a corrupt media. And nobody really knows why. It's an honor to have the president of Ukraine with us. We've had a lot of good discussions, a lot of good talks, and I think progress is being made, very, very substantial progress in many ways. We had a good meeting, as you know, just a short while ago with the president of Russia, and I think there's a possibility that something could come out of it, and today's meeting is very important. We have, I guess, the seven very powerful leaders from Europe, and we're going to be meeting with them right after this meeting, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. If I can, first of all, thank you for invitation, and thank you very much for your efforts, personal efforts to stop killings and stop this war. Thank you, and using this opportunity, many thanks to your wife, First Lady of the United States. She sent a letter to Putin about our children, abducted children, and my wife, she, First Lady of Ukraine, she gave the letter. It's not to you, to your wife.
Oh, I want it.
Yeah. So we are saying this sensitive topic, yes, please. And thanks to our partners, and that you supported this format, that after our meeting we're going to have leaders who are around us, UK and France, Germany, Italy, Finland, EU, NATO, I mean all partners around Ukraine supporting us. Thanks to them, and thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you.
I used to lift weights for about a week. It's true. Then I realized I don't want to do it. I realized I don't like it, Mike. But and York was the barbells and all that stuff. I think that's moved to China, along with a lot of other things. Maybe we'll bring it back. We're going to tariff the hell out of them. We'll bring it back. I'd love to bring it back. No, it's true. I like to build things. So I'm building a gym. I'm building this gorgeous gym in my house, in the basement of my parents' house, and I'm putting it up. And I couldn't sleep at night. I was so excited. It was really beautiful. I'm really good at that. And then the barbells came and I said, oh, this was no fun. I liked building the place. After it was built, they sat there for a long time. But I remember they came from York, PA, right? And I think Mike Putin saw that and he said, well, these people, they're a paper tiger. Let's go into Ukraine. I know Putin would never have done it if I was president. Not even a chance. No, it's not a chance. I used to talk to him about, don't do it, Vladimir, don't do it. I know it was the apple of his eye. I'd say, don't do it, Vladimir, don't do it. Oh, this is going to be terrible, Vladimir, if you do that. Not going to be good. Don't forget, I ended their pipeline, Nord Stream 2. Nobody ever heard of Nord Stream 2 until I came along. They were building the biggest pipeline in the world to Germany and all over Europe. And I said, no, you're not going to do it. You mean we're defending you from Russia and you're paying Russia billions of dollars a month for oil and gas? We're not going to do that. I mean, it's so ridiculous under NATO. And we stopped it. And then Biden comes in, he approved it, but he stopped the Keystone pipeline, which we needed. That's our pipeline. He stopped that, but he approved. And then they say, Trump wasn't that tough on Russia. I was so tough on Russia. It was the biggest project they've ever had. I stopped it. We have a country that's been run by fools. It's been run by stupid people, low IQ individuals. They really are. They're low IQ. He was low IQ. Biden was a low IQ guy 35 years ago. He was a low IQ guy when he went to school, when he went to college. He was always a low IQ guy. One thing I'd like to talk about is right to try. So, do you know what that is? I hope nobody in the room needs it. But we have the best labs, doctors, technicians, but our laboratories are the best for new medicines and everything. They're really amazing. But you can't get it approved. I mean, and rightfully, you can't get it by the FDA. They can't stand me, by the way. I used to push them. I got it down from 12 years to 5 years, but they need certain times. I mean, they do need. I want everything to be rushed, but you can't necessarily do that. But we have a situation where we have things that are really good. We're pretty sure they work. They may not, but we're pretty sure they work. And I said, why isn't it, if a person's terminally ill, why can't they use this stuff that may or may not work? Sir, it's been going on 48 years. They couldn't get it worked out. The country didn't want it because our country would be sued. The insurance companies definitely didn't want it. The labs didn't want it because they didn't want a terminally ill person to be using, something that's going to be like show badly, where they have to put it down. They have to do their lists, and they didn't want to be, they call it a list. They didn't want to be on the list. Somebody's terminally ill and dies and using the medicine, and I understand that. So I got everybody in a room, every one of the doctors, the labs, the insurance companies, and even the country representatives, the Justice Department. They all came in because they couldn't get it done. I said, here's what we do. Somebody can use it. And these people were going all over the world. They were going to Asia, they were going to Europe. If they had money, and they would get scammed many times, but they go all over the world. We couldn't do it here. And most of them, though, had no money, and they'd go home and they'd die. I'd say, look, if somebody's terminally ill, I want to give them a shot at life. It's a great feeling, at least. At least they can say, well, I've got something, and maybe it'll work, and maybe it won't. But what, the expression, what the hell do we have to lose? Somebody's terminally ill. Why? They were saying, we'll be sued. I said, you're not going to be sued. So we worked out, and it didn't take that long. After 48 years, within a period of about a month, and then I got it approved by Congress, believe it or not, we could get things done. But think of this, we got it approved.
Donald, you were in the police business 32 years. You've been married 36. You might tell us which was the hardest of those two careers, but I want you to speak specifically.
Don't do it. Don't do it. You can get yourself in trouble. He wanted to be cute. I've done that. Don't do it. Say, I love my wife very much.
The police was... You'll be careful on this.
Good answer.
But speak to the issue of crime. Would you go back into police work today knowing the kind of challenges police officers face that maybe weren't faced then? And then as a retiree, how difficult it is to live on retirement income given the economy that we currently have?
I'll be totally honest, I would not want to go back and work on the street again. It's burnout, the inability of retention and recruitment of the officers that we need due to the lack of respect and hatred towards the law enforcement prevalent in our big cities today. Coupled with that is the lack of support from the administration, budget cuts, and the lenient and soft on crime policies of the district attorney's office in those cities. In turn, a trickle-down effect into the surrounding communities comes down from this. And then with this, it's forcing law enforcement to do more with less. And the one thing I always told my officers when I was in roll call was, everybody showed up to work tonight, everybody goes home tonight. And what we need is to be back to law and order.
You know what they did with this wall? Much of it they sold for 5 cents on the dollar for scrap metal. And we're going to have to buy it again, but we're not going to pay 5 cents. We're going to pay a lot. It was a very expensive. This was a wall designed specifically for it. In fact, I often talk about it. I never liked the panel on top. You know what it was called? An anti-climb panel. It looked beautiful when you had just... But when you put the panel on top, it didn't look as good. And I said, why do you do that? They said, it's anti-climb. I said, I don't believe it is. And we actually had mountain climbers and drug climbers. We got a couple of them. It's unbelievable. They can carry a 100-pound sack on their back. But they can go up that thing. You and I could never do that, I think. You and I could. No, they go up it like it's nothing. And actually, the anti-climb panel worked. So I said, good. We built so many miles of it, and it worked. And we had the best. And by the way, Mexico did pay. They paid a big price. They weren't able to pay for the wall, but they gave us tens of thousands of soldiers. I said to the president, you're letting these people into our country. You have to give us soldiers to protect us while we're building the wall. I can't do that. I can't do that. I said, if you can't do that, then I'm going to put tariffs on every product that you make, and we're going to charge you 25% back. And he said to me, like I said, I'd love to do that. That's what happened. Millions and millions.
Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Which is it?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think we're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
And, is this the end of the road for American support for Ukraine? Is today's meeting deal or no deal?
I can never say that. It's never the end of the road. People are being killed, and we want to stop that. So I would not say it's the end of the road. No, I think we have a good chance of doing it. It's been almost 4 years now that a lot of people were killed last week. A lot of people last week. I mean, millions of people killed, but a lot of people last week for whatever reason. A big number, a lot of soldiers, on both sides. And I know the president, I know myself, and I believe Vladimir Putin wants to see it ended.
And as you met with Putin on Friday, today you've got President Zelensky here. As you listen to Russia and Ukraine, which side has the better cards?
Well, I don't want to say that. I'm just here to be. Look, this isn't my war. This is Joe Biden's war. He's the one that had a lot to do with this happening, and we want to get it ended. And we want it to end good for everybody. We want it to end good. The people of Ukraine have suffered incredibly.
President Zelensky, are you prepared to keep sending Ukrainian troops to their deaths for another couple years, or are you going to agree to redraw the maps?
Thank you for your question. So, first of all, we live under each day attacks. That today have been a lot of attacks and a lot of wounded people, and the child was dead, small one year and a half. So we need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support, American and European partners, and we will do our best for this. So, and I think we show that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, of personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war, and we are ready for trilateral, as President said. This is a good signal about trilateral. I think this is very good. Thank you.
Mr. President,
if the peace deal will be achieved, are you going to be willing to send American peacekeepers to Ukraine?
Well, we're going to work with Ukraine. We're going to work with everybody, and we're going to make sure that if there's peace, the peace is going to stay long-term. This is very long-term. We're not talking about a 2-year peace and then we end up in this mess again. We're going to make sure that everything's good. We'll work with Russia. We're going to work with Ukraine, and we're going to make sure it works. And I think if we can get to peace, it's going to work. I have no doubt about it.
Your team has talked about security guarantees. Could that involve U.S. troops? Would you rule that out in the future?
We'll let you know that maybe later today. We're meeting with 7 great leaders of great countries also, and we'll be talking about that. They'll all be involved, but there'll be a lot of help when it comes to security. There's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe, but we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved. Yes.
Vladimir Putin mentioned that the war will not end without addressing the root causes of this war. Have you had an understanding what are the root causes of this war?
Well, look, the war is going to end. When it ends, I can't tell you, but the war is going to end, and this gentleman wants it to end, and Vladimir Putin wants it to end. I think the whole world is tired of it, and we're going to get it ended. It was, I've done 6 wars. I've ended 6 wars, and I thought this maybe would be the easiest one, and it's not the easiest one. It's a tough one. A lot of reasons for it, and they'll be talking about it for a long time. But they'll be talking about the others. Look, India, Pakistan. We're talking about the big places. When you look at, you just take a look at some of these wars. You go to Africa and take a look at that. Rwanda and the Congo, Republic of the Congo. That's been going on for 31 years. And so we've done a total of 6, and we really have 6, not including the fact that we obliterated, and it turned out to be a total obliteration, the nuclear, as you said, the future nuclear capability of Iran. And this one, I think we're going to get solved also. I feel confident we're going to get it solved.
Like guarantees or like special envoy put forward.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you tell us about your conversations with European leaders and what they need to see to support?
Or the weightlifter. I think it was like 218 pounds. I know that's a lot. I can't lift it. I don't know who can. Any of our ex-Trump people, they're all Trump people. Kevin's saying he can lift it. I don't know about that, Kevin, but that's a lot. 218 pounds, and she got over that weight, and she was going to break it. They put a half an ounce here, half little tiny ring on top of these big barbells, dumbbells. And they go, and she went like this, and she got to break it. Stood for 11 years. And her mother and father are screaming, "You got it. You got it, darling. I'm so proud of my girl." Well, she couldn't do it. And then this guy comes along. He's named Alice. And he looks at the weight. World record. We could have put another couple of 100 pounds on. I think he would have lifted her. It's so disrespectful to women. Yeah, well, we're going to be meeting with a great representative group and 7 very powerful, very big countries and great people, all friends of mine and friends of yours. And we're going to have some suggestions made. They want to see peace. They would like to see peace. Go ahead, please. In the red.
President Trump, do you think it's fair for Ukraine and for Russia to achieve a lasting and durable peace if Ukraine cedes its territories that Russia hasn't yet conquered? Do you think it's a fair peace for Ukraine?
We're going to have a lasting peace. Just to answer the first part of your question, we're going to have a lasting peace. I hope it's going to be immediately. I hope it doesn't have to go on. And I think people of the whole world is going to be very happy when that's announced. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, you posted on social media, Mr. President, a very touching letter from the First Lady, and the letter was hand-delivered to President Putin, and it calls for an end to the war, essentially, because of the children and the children's future. Why did the First Lady feel that letter was necessary? Was it because she believes that Mr. Putin is the aggressor in the war? Is a similar letter being hand-delivered to President Zelensky?
So the First Lady felt very strongly. She's watched the same thing that you watch and that I watch. I see things that you don't get to see, and it's horrible. But when she's got a great love of children, she has a wonderful son that she loves Probably more than anybody, including me. I hate to say it, but she loves her son. She loves children, and she hates to see something like this happening. And that goes for other wars too. I mean, she sees the heartbreak, the parents, the funerals that you see on television. Always funerals. We want to see something other than funerals. No, she felt it was a beautiful letter. It was very well received by him, and she did ask me to say, she would love to see this end. She would love to see it end, and she says it very openly, very proudly, and with great sorrow because so many people have been killed.
Last week,
Brian, go ahead, Brian.
Yes, sir. I've got a question for each of you.
Yes.
First of all, Mr. President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice? That's the one that attacked you last time. See, now he's in.
I remember that.
No, my first question for you, President
But you
Zelensky.
are in the same suit. You see, I changed, you are not.
Maybe yours is much better. Real quickly, upon peace, God willing we get peace, are you open to holding an election in your country?
Yes, of course. We are open for election, yes. We have to do safety circumstances. And a little bit, we need to work in the parliament, because during the war you can't have elections, but we can do security. We need, we need a truth, yes, everywhere, in the battlefield, in the sky, in the sea, yeah, to make possible for people to do democratic, open, legal elections.
So you say during the war you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now. So you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections? Oh, that's good. I wonder what the fake.
You like this idea?
No. Speaking of news, I got a question for you. This sounds insane for me even to ask this, but do you think the American media really doesn't even want a peace deal because they've been so critical of you every step of the way as you lead the charge for peace?
It's an amazing phenomenon. I said that if in the settlement you got Moscow, St. Petersburg, and thousands of miles around them, they would say I made a bad deal. The level of hatred and animosity is incredible. Not with all. I mean, we have great people up here. We also have terrible people up there that I think are told what to say. But in solving all of these wars, we're dealing with him now too. We're not happy with Putin. I'm not happy with Putin. I can tell you that much right now, because he's killing a lot of people, and a lot of them are his soldiers and their soldiers mostly, and it's now up to 7,000 a week, and I'm not happy with Putin. Okay. By the way, so many questions. Should we keep this going, Pam? This is the opposite of Biden. Biden would take a half a question and he'd leave without answering it. Go ahead. You tell me when it gets boring. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. In the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name.
Before we can make independent judgments about whether or not that's true, and I'm certainly open to it, I think we need to know what it costs. So what's the annual cost of defending Israel? Do you know?
$3 billion a year.
No, that's the aid. But I mean, the cost of the weapons, for example, the cost of U.S. personnel there, the cost of moving ships to the region, which we're doing right now, the cost of moving tankers to the region, all of that. Do we know what the cost is?
So look, the last week, I don't know. And there's some lag when the administration, under the Constitution, the commander-in-chief has control of the armed forces. And so President Trump has made some decisions that we'll know the cost over time, but I don't know the last week. That I don't have visibility on that. The annual cost is $3 billion. It's a 10-year memorandum of understanding, and that's the principal driver of the cost. But let me make a point. We get massive benefits from Israel. Israel shares the Mossad is one of the best intelligence sources on the planet. The enemies of Israel, the people who hate Israel, they all hate us. It's almost a perfect overlap. And so if we're just trying to defend America, we tried to recreate the national security benefits of our alliance with Israel, it would cost, $30 billion, $300 billion.
I'm going into this as someone who's always liked Israel and still does. But I also think at this point, given where we are, it's fair to ask rational questions about what the benefits are.
Good.
Does Mossad share all of its intelligence with us?
Probably not, but they share a lot. We don't share all of our intelligence with them, but we share a lot. It's a close alliance.
Do they spy domestically in the United States?
Oh, they probably do, and we do as well. And friends and allies spy on each other. And I assume all of our allies spy on us.
And that's okay with you?
You know what? One of the things about being a conservative is that you're not naive and utopian. You don't think humans are all... Part of the reason socialism doesn't work is the mantra from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs doesn't work. As a conservative, I assume people act in their rational self-interest.
So it's conservative to pay people to spy on you?
It's conservative to recognize that human beings act in their own self-interest, and every one of our friends spies on us, and I'm not...
Do you like it? That's my question. I'm not asking whether they have motive to do it. Of course they do. I understand that, and
by the way,
I'm not mad at them. But you're an American lawmaker, so I just want to know. Hold on, I want to know your attitude. Yeah. You said that your guiding principle, in fact, the only principle, the only criterion.
I said guiding, the overwhelming. I wouldn't say only.
Is it in America's interest? Is it in America's interest for Israel to spy on us, including on the president?
It is in America's interest to be closely allied with Israel because we get huge benefits for it. And you want to...
But I just want to stop on the spying for a second. That it takes place, as you know, and including on the president of the United States and several presidents. And I just want to know if that's okay and why is it okay? Wouldn't an American lawmaker say to a client state, you're not allowed to spy on us? I'm sorry. I know why you want to. I'm not mad at you, but you're not allowed to.
Sure.
And I don't care for it. I don't want to be spied on by you. Is that... It's kind of weird not to say that, but you don't seem able to say that.
Sure, I would say don't spy on us. They're going to anyway. And by the way, the Brits are, the Canadians are, like, I don't think...
Well, I'm not for that at all. Okay. I think it's disgusting. But we don't actually pay their... we're not their most meaningful sponsor. We're not sort of paying for the operations of the British government.
So I gotta say, and this is, it's weird. We're talking about isolationists, the obsession with Israel. Why is Israel...
Oh, I don't think I'm obsessed with Israel.
Okay, but I think a lot of people are, and like the question, Israel spies on us. Well, so does every other country. Why are you mad at Israel?
I guess, no, I'm...
That was gonna go into a full-blown deal very quickly. You know what the one I'm talking about, it was a big one. But they don't even write about that. No matter what I do, no matter what, and this is not anything to do with you. It's probably to your advantage in a certain way. But no matter what I do, no matter what deal I make, from my standpoint, you'll come out good. Maybe President Putin will come out good. But they'll say, Trump was absolutely horrible. It's just that, and I've lived with that for a long time. I've lived with it since just before the first election. I used to get great publicity. Now I get the worst publicity anyone's ever gotten in office, but I won in a landslide, so that people understand. They're the only ones that count, ultimately. But I've also had great reporters. I've had journalists that are very good. But it's very sad when you do the right thing. As an example, they said, because of the fact that Vladimir Putin came to American soil, this was a tremendous defeat for Donald Trump. No, it was really wonderful that he did it. It was a hard thing for him to do, to be honest with you. It was the opposite of what they said, but they said it. Now, if he didn't come, they'd say that was also bad for Trump. There's no way. And there's just a great dishonesty of the press, and I think that's why it's lost its credibility. Its credibility is at an all-time low. We have a thing going on right now in D.C. We went from the most unsafe place anywhere to a place that now friends are calling me up, Democrats are calling me up, and they're saying, sir, I want to thank you. My wife and I went out to dinner last night for the first time in 4 years, and Washington, D.C. is safe, and you did that in 4 days. I'll tell you it's safe. I had another friend of mine, he has a son who's a great golfer, he's on tour, and he came in fourth yesterday in the big tournament where Scotty Scheffler made the great shot, and he said his son is going to dinner in Washington, D.C. tonight. I said, would you have allowed that to happen a year ago? He said, no way, no way. He said, what you've done is incredible. And I think the people realize it. But the press says, he's a dictator, he's trying to take over. No, all I want is security for our people. But people that haven't gone out to dinner in Washington, D.C. in 2 years are going out to dinner. And the restaurants the last 2 days were busier than they've been in a long time. Thank you for the question.
I walked around yesterday with MTG. If you can walk around with D.C. with MTG and not be attacked, the city is safe.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week you warned of what you called severe consequences if a 30-day ceasefire or any type of ceasefire were not agreed to by Russia. Will there be severe consequences? Does that change because of
I don't think you need a ceasefire. You know, if you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, well, you know, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and, you know, maybe they don't want that. But if you look at the 6 deals that we made peace and you know, long-term, long-running wars, I didn't do any ceasefires. Would I like the concept. You know, I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately, as opposed to in 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever it takes. But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting. They have to fight. I wish they could stop. I'd like them to stop. But strategically, that could be a disadvantage for one side or the other. But all of these deals I made without even the mention of the words ceasefire.
Can you explain the decision to offer Ukraine Article 5-like security guarantees, but stop short of pushing for their full membership?
Yeah, well, we haven't done anything on that yet. If you look back and you go back long before President Putin, it was always a statement that they would never allow Ukraine into NATO. So that was a statement that was made, but we haven't discussed any of that yet. We're going to be discussing it today, but we will give them very good protection, very good security. That's part of it. And the people that are waiting for us.
I've got 3 names for you. And the first one, look, the media didn't care about this story when Joe Biden was in office. Suddenly they care about this story again. Ghislaine Maxwell serving 20 years in prison for trafficking. Is clemency on the table for her in exchange for testimony?
I'm allowed to do it, but nobody's asked me to do it. I know nothing about it. I don't know anything about the case, but I know I have the right to do it. I have the right to give pardons. I've given pardons to people before, but nobody's even asked me to do it.
Sean Diddy Combs?
Right.
Would you consider pardoning him?
Well, he was essentially, I guess, sort of half innocent.
Yes.
I don't know what they do. He's still in jail or something, but he was celebrating a victory, but he seems, I guess it wasn't as good as a victory. You know, I was very friendly with him. I got along with him great and seemed like a nice guy. I didn't know him well. But when I ran for office, he was very hostile.
He said some not so nice things about you, sir.
And it's hard, you know, like you, we're human beings.
Right.
And we don't like to have things cloud our judgment, right? But when you knew someone and you were fine, and then you run for office and he made some terrible statements. So I don't know, it's more difficult. It makes it more, I'm being honest, it makes it more difficult to do.
But more likely a no for Combs,
I would
sounds
say
like?
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about George Santos?
Boy.
He just went away, 7 years.
You know, he lied like hell. I mean, I have to tell you. And I didn't know him, but he was 100% for Trump. But I didn't, you know, I might have met him, maybe not, I don't know. But he was a congressman and his vote was solid. It sounds like a lot. He got in. You know, you could blame the other side for not checking him out.
Yeah.
He didn't do all those things that he said.
Local news missed it. Everybody missed it.
Well, you could say the media missed it. Everybody missed it. They found out about this stuff after the election was won. So nobody's talked to me about it. So they really, you know, they haven't talked to me about the 2. They have talked to me about Sean, but they haven't talked to me about the 2. But again, with him, I have the right to do it. Nobody's asked me, but it's interesting. Is it 7 years?
7 years. He just went away.
That's a long time.
Your Deputy Attorney General sat down with Ghislaine Maxwell for 9 hours. I'm just wondering when the American people get to hear what she said during that interview.
Well, I don't know, because I haven't spoken about it, but he's a very talented guy, Todd Blanche, and a very straight shooter.
Yeah.
And I think he probably wanted to know, you know, just to get a feeling of it, because we'd like to release everything, but we don't want people to get hurt that shouldn't be hurt.
Yeah.
And I would assume that was why he was there. I want to release everything. I just don't want people to get hurt. You can't have people associated. First of all, the files were run by some very bad people and very sick people like Comey and Lisa, the whole group, you know, all those people in that office. They ran those files for 4 years. And if they were going to use the files, they would have used it before my election, because unless they're stupid, which to a certain extent they are stupid.
You're saying they would have released the information?
Well, they had the files. They control the files.
Yes.
I didn't control the files. They control the files for 4 years. So if they had something, they would have released it before the election. because they are not geniuses, but they're evil.
Right.
There are a lot of evil people. I can't really tell you much other than Todd went in, and I think he just wants to make sure that innocent people aren't hurt. But you'd have to speak to him about it.
Okay. I want to ask you about the situation with Russia, Mr. President.
Sure.
You have tried for the last 6 months to end this debacle in Ukraine that's now in calendar year number 4. Today, just moments ago on Truth Social, you announced that you ordered 2 nuclear submarines to undisclosed locations because of something provocative that was said by one of the Russians. Can you tell us how concerned you are about a possible escalation right now?
Well, a former president of Russia, who's now in charge of one of the most important councils, Medvedev, said some things that were very bad, talking about nuclear. And when you mention the word nuclear, I say, my eyes light up, and I say, we better be careful, because it's the ultimate threat. He shouldn't have said it. He's got a fresh mouth. He said things in the past, too. And so we always want to be ready. And so I have sent to the region 2 nuclear submarines. I just want to make sure that his words are only words and nothing more than that.
And they're closer to Russia, I assume?
They're closer to Russia, yeah, they're closer to Russia. It's a terrible situation going on over there. Since the beginning of the year, they've lost 20,000 Russians in this ridiculous war. They've lost 8,000 Ukrainians soldiers. Then they've also lost people in cities and towns a lot, but not nearly numbers like that, because missiles are being shot into Kiev and other places. This is Biden's war. This is not my war. This war would have never happened. It didn't happen for 4 years, was never even talked about other than anything. I had conversations with Putin. It was the apple of his eye, but he wasn't going to go into Ukraine. And I will say this, that's a war that should end. That's a terrible war.
The bloodiest and deadliest in Europe since the Second World War. Reagan said peace through strength. I now call it peace through Trump. I think that deterrent is
well, we've settled a lot of wars. You take a look at what's happened just over the last little while. We've settled a lot of very beautiful wars have been settled.
That don't get a lot of attention from the media.
No, they don't talk about it.
Can I just ask you, your 10-day
one of the wars, think of it, India, Pakistan, nuclear. You look at Cambodia just recently. It looked like that was going to be another big war. It was going to be a war. I settled that up, and I settled it up with trade. I settled a lot of them with trade. I said, listen, you guys are going to fight. You can fight all you want. I mean, just fight your hearts out, but we're not doing a trade deal. And all of a sudden, they end up not doing a war. I settled in the Congo. We settled a big one with Rwanda. It's going on for 31 years, 8 million people dead, killed. It looked like it was going to go on for another 31 years, and we settled that one. Kosovo, you know about that, with Serbia. That was going to break out. I mean, I settled a lot of wars. I think I settled averaging about a war a month. But, we're saving millions of lives. Look what we did with the nuclear threat of Iran. That was totally obliterated, as now has been confirmed. They like to say, well, maybe it wasn't really that well. It was obliterated. It turned out, they just reported today, it was totally obliterated. Those pilots did some job, but we wiped out that nuclear threat. We've done a lot for peace.
Just quickly, you gave Russia, I think it was like a 50-day deadline, and then you lowered that to between 10 and 12 days. That would expire next Friday. Yeah. What happens if there's no deal?
We'll put sanctions on, and he's pretty good with sanctions. He knows how to avoid sanctions.
Does Putin know how serious you appear to be now?
I just want people to stop dying.
Yeah.
This was Biden's war. This was not my war, Rob. This was Biden's war. It would have never happened. And it didn't happen. For 4 years, it didn't happen. There was no discussion of it. It wasn't going to happen. I told Putin, can't do it. It wasn't going to happen. And I got along with him very well. And the sad thing is, when I come in, I want to put this fire out. And this is the one flame, but I want to put the fire out. And I talked to Putin a lot. And I think we had a great conversation. Then I go home and I see that a bomb was dropped in Kiev and some of the various cities are killing people. And I say, I just had this great conversation with him, and it looked like we were I thought we had it worked out 3 different times, and maybe he wants to try and take the whole thing. I think it's going to be very hard for him.
Has your opinion of Putin changed just in dealing with him?
I'm surprised.
You knew him, but
I don't want to say that. Look, he's obviously a tough cookie, but so it hasn't changed in that way.
Thank you, President Trump. The United States has already given hundreds of billions of dollars to this war effort in Ukraine. At best, it is a stalemate, and the killing continues. So, President Trump, How much more is the United States willing to give Ukraine? And President Zelensky, how much more do you want?
Well, I'll start off just by saying we're not giving anything now. We're selling weapons. This is something before, I guess the number is well over $300 billion. That was under Joe Biden, a corrupt politician, not a smart man, never was. By the way, go back 40 years. He was not a smart man 40 years ago either, but now he's in particular bad. This was done by a corrupt administration that shouldn't have been in, and frankly, if the right results of the election were given, if I were president, this war would have never taken place, and he would have been very happy because he would have liked to have seen. I mean, they went through hell. He went through hell. This war would have never happened, and the people that were killed, a couple of million people, a lot of people with soldiers and everything else, and the people that have been displaced and forced into other areas and other countries because of what's happened, none of that would have happened. And I'm just saying that he was a horrible president, whether it was the borders or this. He was just a horrible, corrupt president.
Mr. President,
you want to answer?
I can. Thank you so much. So first of all, we have possibility now to buy weapon from the United States. We are thankful for this program and this opportunity. We are thankful for Europe. They pay for this. And through NATO program, for example, Pearl and etc., we have some programs where we can have some money to finance this. And this is a part, I think, it's not a part for the war and to defend us. It also will be a part for security guarantees, to strengthen our army, to rearm Ukrainian army. This is very, very important. And it depends how much money we need to rearm. For example, the question of air defense, we spoke about it with President Trump, and I'm happy that we have now bilateral decisions and we work on it with production, American production. Nobody in Europe has so many air defense like Patriots, for example. We need it very much, and this is also about defending.
And I think, I think the good news, we make the best military equipment in the world by far. You mentioned the Patriots. How good are they?
Systems.
We have systems, they're literally 100% foolproof. And it's really like shooting two bullets, two bullets hitting each other in the air in a space like this. The chance is 100%. It's 99 to 100%. So we sell the equipment to NATO. And NATO does what, I don't know what the arrangement is that you have with, but I know that they want you to have that equipment. And we're getting the best equipment in the world, but they pay us for the equipment. Under Biden, it was just crazy what was going on. I believe the number is over 300. I think it could be $350 billion worth of equipment and money and everything else. And we've made more progress in settling this war in the last 2 months than they made in 4 years. This should have been settled a long time ago, but it should have never happened. Yeah, please.
You pushed out on social media.
Brian, go first.
You pushed out on social media about doing away with mail-in ballots and potentially electronic voting machines. Can you explain on that?
Well, I will. That's a very off-topic, just really quickly. Mail-in ballots are corrupt. Mail-in ballots, you can never have a real democracy with mail-in ballots. And we, as made that deal, but they, we've had just a very special relationship with them. Like, I won't do that deal with cars. I mean, unless somebody shows me that there's another kind of a car that's comparable to a Rolls-Royce, then there aren't too many. This is a good commercial for Rolls-Royce, but they're going to order a lot of cars.
Mr. President, I wonder whether you'd like to buy.
Well, the last time this happened,
I would be happy to suggest a discount, obviously a very modest discount. We have to protect our profit margins.
I've had many of them, actually. The last time that happened, I ended up buying a Tesla. To end mail-in ballots because they're corrupt and you know that we're the only country in the world, I believe, I may be wrong, but just about the only country in the world that uses them because of what's happened. Massive fraud all over the place. The other thing we want change are the machines. For all of the money they spend, it's approximately 10 times more expensive than paper ballots. And paper ballots are very sophisticated with the watermark paper and everything else. We would get secure elections. We'd get much faster results. The machines, they say we're going to have the results in 2 weeks. With paper ballots, you have the results that night.
Most people, but most people, many countries use paper ballots. It's the most secure form. So between paper ballots, very, very important, paper ballots, and I think maybe even more important, the mail-in voting. We're going to end mail-in voting. It's a fraud. If you have mail-in vote, even Jimmy Carter with this commission, they set it up. He said the one thing about mail-in voting, you will never have an honest election if you have mail-in. And it's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it, because the Democrats want it. It's the only way they can get elected. Because with men and women's sports and with transgender for everybody and open borders and all of the horrible things, and now the new thing is they love crime. They're fighting me on the fact that I've made Washington, D.C. safe. We're not going to get mugged, beaten up, or killed like all the people you've been watching get so badly hurt. I'm glad, I hate to take your time in this, but I'm glad you asked me that question. We're going to stop mail-in ballots because it's corrupt. You know, when you go to a voting booth and you do it the right way and you go to a state that runs it properly, you go in, they even ask me, they asked me for my license plate, for identify. I said, I don't know if I have it. He said, sir, you have to have it. I was very impressed, actually. But it's very hard to cheat with mail-in voting. As you know what happens in California, it's so corrupt, where some people get 5, 6, 7 ballots.
We have a proposal that Democrats and Republicans will support to do a CR that will not shut down the government. We urge you to take it.
And if it's not good border security, I won't take it.
It is very good border security.
And if it's not good border security, I won't take it.
It's what the
Because when you look at these numbers of the effectiveness of our border security, and when you look at the job that we're doing with our military...
You just said it is effective.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah, you just said it's effective.
Without a wall, these are only areas where you have the walls.
We want to do
Where
this.
you have walls, Chuck, it's effective. Where you don't have walls, it is not effective.